Greetings. I am streaming to my personal YouTube channel and to Instagram. So I'm mainly here for my Instagram followers. I just did my interview in Jamaica with our good friend Cliff Hughes from Nationwide News. They read our press release this morning, and I have now gone and done the live interview as well. So really wanted us to talk a bit about our Reg CF. So welcome everyone for joining. I can see your questions, so feel free to post your questions, comments, but this is essentially Ask Me Anything about our Reg CF or regulation crowdfunding offering that has now launched here in the United States. We've become the first US based company to get an SEC exemption to raise capital from retail investors to invest back into the Caribbean, Jamaica, Barbados, Bahamas, and Ghana in particular, 10 US dollars per share, and of course $500 minimum investment. So we're super excited to that. I'm going to put up the link to the website so you would know where to go and get more information. So you just have to go to islandforward.com, and that is where you guys will be able to go and check it out. So big up Nikki B. I see Nikki B jump on. I see our head of retail investments, retail investor relations for retail. Tanya Peralta is on here as well. Please drive safe. But yeah, no, shoot me the questions. And I see, interesting. Jason Walker is on asking if you can see the questions on YouTube. No. So the questions don't show up in the StreamYard software from Instagram to go onto YouTube. So I have to read out the questions that are going to come. But I love it. Congratulations on this new step forward. Thank you. It has been a long road, a lot of potholes. We had to turn around a couple of times. In fact, we had to change cars a couple of times. If you think of the knowledge that you build this vehicle as a founder of a startup, is that the vehicle that actually takes you where you want to get to? And you think about Instagram, you think about Twitter. Both of those companies came out of something else. So what became Instagram was actually a company called Bourbon. They wanted to be able to do stuff related to bars. That failed, but the thing that people loved the most was the filters with the pictures they were taking. And so they focused on just that. And that became Instagram, which was then sold for $1 billion to Facebook and is now worth $15 billion. So it wasn't the same vehicle that got them where they thought they were going to go. For Twitter, there was this thing called Odeo, ODEO. That's what they built. The internal communication tool was Twitter. Odeo failed. Twitter went on to become what it is. So it's important that you don't simply get stuck with the vehicle. Sometimes, in fact, the vehicle that you're in is not good enough to accomplish what you want. If you think about this, I'm not going to race on the track with a Toyota Corolla. It's not the right suspension, it's not the right engine, it's not the right tires. So you go to the limit of that vehicle until something happens. It brought down, or you realize you need to change vehicles, you need to upgrade the vehicle. So Blue Moho Capital Inc. is different from Blue Moho Capital Partners Inc. It's different from Blue Moho Holdings Inc., right? It's an SPV, a special purpose vehicle created just to execute this because of all the knowledge we've gained over the last 6 years. So I really appreciate it. I saw you live with Nicole on Yahoo Finance. Amazing interview. Yes, so Schwab Network with Nicole was incredible. That was on Friday. Full video is here on Instagram, so you can check that out. And yes, my Bloomberg interview was really good, but that one last week Friday, I feel like that was that's the best interview I've ever done to date. So let's just keep tapping the interviews. That's the plan. I was joking with some people, and I went Super Saiyan Blue on them with that one. So let's keep going. We have to keep elevating what we're doing. Yes, you see over here. There is Goku right there. So yes, I'm going to be talking about leveling up and Super Saiyan. But really excited about this. It is history making. Our press release goes up today, so it's going to be blasted everywhere going forward. So between now and Wednesday, we should be getting a lot of PR. Our marketing campaign does launch later this week as well. So it's going to be all over social media in the US. We're very targeted. Again, US persons. We are allowed to raise across the 50 states of the US and generally solicit. I've had some people come to me and say, why are you so fixated on retail investors? Why don't you just go to institutional and family office and pension funds? Well, they don't like the structure that we have. They don't invest in Berkshire Hathaway type entities. Some don't want it to be public. And of course, I might have an issue with the valuation. They want a ton of things. Just is actually ridiculous. And then we have to convince them in the first place to invest in the Caribbean and that it's safe to invest in Jamaica. So we don't want to deal with those people. You want to find 1 foot bars to step over, not 7 foot bars to jump over. That's what Warren Buffett says. So we knew the 1 foot bar. The revolution will be televised on social media. Yes, it will be. We've been documenting everything for the last 4 years too. So it definitely will be televised. But the reason why it made sense to me for retail, I have been working in financial services since March 2001. That was my first job in financial services. Some of you on this weren't even born. You weren't even thought of. So 23 years in financial services. I started with Jamaica National. At the time was called Jane Microcredit. It became Jane Small Business Loans Limited, Jane SBL. And that allowed me to meet a lot of retail people. In December 2005, I moved back home to Jamaica. I'd done my MBA. We had Real Vibes, our startup. Moved back home and I joined their product development team. And I was in charge of youth marketing. And I helped to design a high yield savings product for Canada, US, and UK Jamaicans wanting to save in Jamaica, as well as some other mortgages and investment products and savings products. Again, this was focused on retail. I launched your internet banking platform. I redesigned all the websites. I launched your email marketing. I launched the first pages for Facebook, their first Twitter pages. My life was designed around retail financial services. That's just the way it is. So I know retail. I spend a lot of time there. At one point, I worked with an agency in West Palm Beach, and our largest client was actually Vanek Mutual Funds, one of the largest mutual fund and ETF providers in the US. I had $100,000 budget for pay-per-click. So this is Google and actually Bing. And when we had another $100,000 budget for display banner ads, one person with me, so 2 of us ran display. I ran PPC myself. So I went from 10,000 keywords to 44,000 keywords. And I had them completely redesign the banner ads. But more importantly, it was a landing experience, what happened after a click. And that taught me over the 3 months of fixing their campaign, how to reach retail. So $100,000 spent, brought in 1.1 million US in funds, then 1.3, then 1.5. That's per month. Retail is powerful if you know how to get to them. So that is why we've been focused on giving regular people access to good investments. We started with affordable housing in Jamaica and Barbados. We'll scale that obviously over time. Once we're direct listed, it makes it a lot easier for us to do a lot more deals and focus on the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. So really excited about doing that. Blue Maho Capital Link is something that I've dreamt about. You guys have seen this brand push for the last 6 years, especially heavily in the last 4 years, COVID onwards. And we're excited for the things that come out of that over the next few months. So it is going to be a fascinating ride. You guys have front row. You on Instagram in particular, really front row. You get to see stuff before I announce them publicly. Once we go public, though, I can't do that. Once we go public, everybody has to be informed at the same time. It's really interesting how my life is going to completely flip. I can't be as transparent as I want to be because we have SEC rules to follow, because you may have issues with insider trading. So whatever is told has to be told to everybody and communicated through a market release before I go and post it on Instagram, for example. But you guys will still be among the first to know, because once I post it, then we'll come and tell everybody. And I do want people to realize that for me, ultimately, Instagram and LinkedIn are going to be the 2 most important places to interact with Blue Maho. So feel free, guys. Any questions you have? You have me sitting there. I have a call at 1 o'clock and then onwards. So I am live for the next 15 or so minutes. If you have questions, ask the questions. How soon will we start seeing ROI and what's the projected return? So that's an interesting question. And I'm going to tell you why that's a wrong question to ask. The only way that you should be worried about projected return on an individual project is if you invested in just a project. So, hey, give me your money. We're going to invest and we're just building 200 houses and then we all make money off of that, right? That's real estate. We're going to invest in this house. We're going to fix it, flip it, sell it. I think I can make a 20% return. That's not what we're doing. We're building a company. So if you ask Jeff Bezos from Amazon or ask Steve Jobs from Apple or ask Warren Buffett from Berkshire Hathaway, what is the projected return? They would just look at you and be like, What? It's a startup. We're not investing in one thing, right? You should ask, what is our target internal rate of return, right? How much do we want to generate per year for the business to grow the business? But there's no projected return on just the initial 5 million, right? We are raising capital to go public, to raise more and more, to go and do more deals. It should scale over time. What you should be asking is, okay, what problem are you solving? What's the pain point? What's the potential size of that market? Do I think this team can get other people to buy into this business and then scale it? That is what it is. Can they solve a pain point for a large enough group of customers and then prudently manage that capital? If you think we are solving a problem for somebody and they'll put money in, then you should invest. If not, then you wait. If you want a fixed return or projected return, you can wait till we do bonds and we can pay you 8% or 7%. We are targeting an internal rate of return of 15%. So we want a 15% return on equity, right? Technically, it's a return on invested capital. So not just equity, any borrowed money we will get. If you can grow your money at 15% per year, you double the value of that money. So we want to double the business over 5 years. That's it. So 15% return on invested capital is what we want. The stock price should grow faster than that, though, right? This is a growth company, not a true value play. We're not at the stage of maturity. This is growth. So your PE ratio is going to be much higher than that. Look at Amazon. That took 10 years before it was profitable. We'll be profitable in year 1 because we have no debt. So we just have to control our expenses. So I love that. But he did ask, how soon will you start seeing ROI? The minute we list the company on the NASDAQ, you would see an ROI because you getting at $10 a share. We list it. In an ideal world, the share price goes up. We only have 25 million shares that are authorized and that will be issued by then. We list at $10 a share. People don't want to buy in. They need to buy in at whatever somebody's going to sell it. I don't think anybody's going to sell below the 10. The minute we announce assets under management growing, or the minute we announce that the first 200 houses were sold out, what happens? People say, oh, wow, this is working. I want to get in, right? Nothing is better than actual success. Nothing is better than actual success. So as long as we show that we're delivering on our promise and growing the business, and the share price will eventually follow. So that's how you need to think. We are focused on investors who are long-term. If you buy Berkshire Hathaway, you would buy us. You have to be thinking 5, 10 years down the line. If you had invested in Warren Buffett's company in 1981, 5 years later, you weren't complaining. 10 years later, you weren't complaining. 20 years later, you're not complaining. Those are the shareholders we want. You have to have an investor mindset. Hold for the long term. Sell whenever you want. The difference between us and Berkshire is that we will pay dividends. So Warren has never paid dividends because he feels that he's a better allocator of the capital than giving you. And he has proven that. He's generated north of 20% returns a year. Yes, I would like to pull that off. I'm not promising anybody those numbers. We are targeting 15% return on invested capital internally. Let's see where that goes. So that is how soon. That's our internal rate. You holding shares low, that's a different story. It can go up or down. The shares in a public company, and nobody, Amazon or Facebook, nobody would tell you that the projected return is X% on the money, or this is, it took 10 years to say ROI for Amazon in actual cash. The price of the stock kept going up though, but that's it. Can you be a Jamaican citizen and still participate in offering? You can be a citizen of any country. The only issue is that you have to be a U.S. person. So you need a social security number or a tax identification number. So to get your tax identification number, you have to apply to the IRS, get that number, you then open a bank account, fund the bank account, and then invest here. Otherwise, you just wait. And then when you're listed on NASDAQ, you go to your broker in Jamaica and say, hey, I want to buy Blue Mohawk Capital on NASDAQ, and they buy it on your behalf. And so that's the other way. We have been approached by some investment banks in Jamaica to create a vehicle in Jamaica that would be available down there to Jamaicans own a piece of it in Jamaican dollars. We haven't crossed that bridge as yet. It's important we stay narrowly focused on solving a problem for our target market. Our target market is a diaspora. That's our primary target market. We're solving a problem for people like me who live in the United States initially, then for those who live outside of the Caribbean who want to invest down there, then we can scale from that. So that's what's required. How can we measure the impact of the investments made? I love that. So we actually partnered with a company called CorpCare in Jamaica. They specialize in actually analyzing impact investments and just actually the impact of your investments. They recently did the impact report for Grace Kennedy. So they're already familiar with working with large companies who don't traditionally talk about impact to measure that. Yeah, things that we care about are going to be obviously what the supply chain looks like. We want to look at jobs created since we invested versus before we invested. We obviously want to look at anything that we could bring in terms of CO2 reduced or plastic reduced in there. We want to look at the wages paid after we invest and how we deploy. We're certainly going to measure how many houses we've created as housing and how many people have benefited from that housing. And so those are things that we can measure, and we will put that in our annual report as well. We care a lot about impact assessment. And before we write a check into any deals going forward, we're going to be measuring that very carefully. Yeah, so that's something that's important to us. And I love that you asked that question, David. I love this one. Mr. Q Balance, excited for this journey. Yeah, man, you can imagine how excited we are. Oh, gosh. I love it. When are you planning on an IPO? So, great question, Trisha. We are not planning an IPO, right? An IPO stands for an initial public offering. That means it's the first time that your stock is available to the public. Well, our stock is now available to the public, so we can't have an IPO. Second thing is that an IPO costs 5 times as much as a direct listing. And with an IPO, you have what's called a quiet period. So we have to shut up. And then if you don't get the money that day, you don't list. So IPOs are very, very tough. And that's why IPOs are so few and far between in the US now. And more companies are staying private longer. We are doing a direct listing. So it's the same way that Proven in Jamaica did a listing by introduction. That's a direct listing. So you raise the money first while you're private, and then you just direct list it on NASDAQ. You just place it onto NASDAQ. So we are going to do a direct listing, and our goal is to get that done this summer or as soon as qualified. So we need to get the $5 million US in stockholders' equity. That will then qualify us to list on NASDAQ. 300 shareholders, the market makers. We already have our ticker symbol reserved. We're not allowed to talk about that yet and announce it, but that time will come. So we're excited to that. And this one says, where do I buy? It's on the bottom. Islandforward.com is where you go, and you can sign up. All the information is there. You click invest now, and then you fill out the form on that page. Minimum is 500 US, no maximum. And then, of course, Mr. Q Balance is asking, is the plan to build and sell or rental units as well? We have no interest in rental units ever under Bloomer Hole Capital Inc. Zero interest in becoming a landlord for residential units. Absolutely no interest. We will do residential, we will do commercial and industrial, but we have no interest in rental units. We want to build, sell, move on. Build, sell, move on. Straight real estate development for the residential market. So no interest in rental. We do have a Bloomer Hole Caribbean REIT that's going to focus on rental, but that's only going to be in the high-end section on the resort side of things in the Caribbean, and more importantly, focus on commercial. And that's a fund that will be managed by Bloomer Hole Capital. So it's our Blackstone is the idea, right? What Michael Leachin said was, what if Berkshire Hathaway owned Blackstone? So Berkshire is Bloomer Hole Capital Inc. We're creating an asset management subsidiary, which is our Blackstone, which then manages multiple funds. Some will be private, some will be public. And people can invest into the funds themselves just for that. So zero interest in rental. Build, sell, move on. I love it. Let me see any other questions popping up. This is great. Hey, man. David Morris, obviously, respect for the shared information. Direct listing coming somewhere soon thereafter. Yes, so we are aiming to get listed on the NASDAQ by Jamaica's independence this year. That's our target. We don't determine that, though. The SEC has to sign off on the next set of paperwork we want to submit, ideally at the end of this month. We'll submit. It takes between 30 and roughly 60 days for them to qualify that. Once that is qualified, our ticker symbol can reserve. They still can't buy it. We need to get to 5 million in stockholders' equity. So every dollar we raise right now is stockholders' equity because we have no debt. So that is the most important thing, is we need to have 5 million US in stockholders' equity to direct list on NASDAQ, pay the fees, and we're up and running. So that's the phase we're at right now, is the raise to qualify to go and list. And the only things left are to get to the 300 shareholders. This is going to help us do that, obviously. And then 5 million stockholders' equity with the SEC. Yes, buy at islandforward.com. $10 a share, $500 minimum, and that unleashes A lot. Let's just put it that way. I mean, imagine that there are going to be people who don't really understand shares and how you make money from capital appreciation. They've never bought shares in their life, so they're going to want a bond. So Blue Moho Capital, after it's listed, it'll be even easier for us to issue a bond. So we could do a diaspora bond that we can then invest directly into building real estate or helping with healthcare or security, infrastructure, and more in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. So that idea is going to be great. We think that the interest rate that we'd end up being able to pay, that people would want, we can pay up to 10%, but I think that we can raise capital at 7% in the US from the diaspora. I think that's a number based on what CDs are paying right now. Anything between 5.5% and 7%, I think we'll be able to get capital 5 years, 10 years to deploy as bonds, which is debt that we can use and to deploy into Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. So yeah, well, that's the plan. Let's get listed first, though, right? We stay narrowly focused on getting listed, a liquid vehicle, so people don't have to call me and ask to get their money back. Most people don't understand how investing in public companies work, so we have to educate them first. In an ideal world, this is the first stock they've ever purchased in their entire life, but it won't be the last. You buy our stock, you're going to buy some Berkshire Hathaway stock. You're probably going to go and buy some Apple, or you might buy some Google, some Facebook, but start buying some stock, right? Buy an ETF. I would actually push everybody to buy a no-load mutual fund or ETF from Vanguard, focus on S&P 500. We get to unleash financial literacy at scale for people who have been overlooked. That's all I can ask for. Let's educate us, and let's get us to invest back into the region. So that's where we are today. And we're super, super excited, as you guys can imagine. So I'm watching this clock counting down. The reminder just popped up on the computer and the desktop. I have a standing call on Mondays with our lawyer. We have an external general counsel, and I moved that call from 12 to 1 because I was on radio live. So we do our team meeting at 10 a.m. I do a call with the lawyer at 12 every Monday. And that's cool. When is the last day to invest? The last day to invest is the day before we go public. That's really it. There's no cutoff, right? We have up to 12 months to raise 5 million. We're going to scale that to 75 million. We only need to get to 5 to list. If we get to 30 million, we list on the NASDAQ global market instead of the select. So I don't think anybody should be focused on the last day. They should focus on getting in right now, because imagine one person could come and just say, no, here's 5 million US dollars. We're not qualified to list except for the shareholders. We quickly sort out the 300 shareholders, and then you're out, and you have to wait until we're direct listed to buy more shares, and we don't know what the price is at that point. So that's what you need to think through. That's the beauty of it. So there is no last day. The last day is when we go, is the day before we go public, is what I would say. I love this. You mean the success of any business is strongly hinged on the principal members. Who are the other principals on your team, and where can we find more information about them? So that's not exactly true. The success is not based on other principles. The success is based on the team. You need alignment of mission, vision, and values. Remember, I literally worked in private equity and hedge funds and studied Buffett. So you can have one person. You need to have a strong team behind that person. And again, that team has to have alignment in mission, vision, and values. You look through our offering memorandum, you see the board of directors with the 5 members of the board, their entire background, as well as the advisors, including Michael Leachin as our key advisor. So if you go to islandforward.com, you'll see offering statement. You click that. You can scroll down to board of directors and key advisors. You'll see all their information, all their background, and I guarantee you'll be more than comfortable with who we have on our board and who we have as advisors for this company. Because it is true. When you buy into a company, when you invest in a company, you're investing in people. So who are the people behind the company? How do they think? How do they make their decisions? What are they reading? Those are the important things. You need to understand how they are going to deal with whatever is thrown at them. You need to understand what their values are. What is the mission of the business? What's the vision of what they're trying to do? And that's what you buy into, because it means that whatever comes their way, they can steer and get around it. And that's something that most people don't think about when they buy shares in publicly traded companies. They're not paying attention to the CEO and their approach to business. And we're not thinking about what's the last book that they read, what's the last Harvard Business Review case study that they looked at. You guys know me. You've been following me on Instagram forever, so you know I care a lot about business and how to scale business. You see all these books behind me, all these books I have here to read, all these Harvard Business Review books, things I need to read. I mean, this is the stuff that I talk about all the time, right? Yeah, I'm an MBA. I can't help it. Yeah, so it's crucial that you understand the team. So the offering memorandum is available on the website at islandford.com. Check out who you want to see. And they're also named on the page when you go to invest. If you click invest now, the deck is on there and you scroll through the pitch deck and you get to see the who, the team. And that's going to be crucial. I see another question here. And that's what I meant before you go public. I'd like to invest before you IPO. So when you do, my shares will be worth a lot more. So Trisha, I want to be just clear. One, when an IPO with direct listing, but number two, there's no guarantee the shares go up. Right? Don't assume that investing in IPOs means that stock prices automatically go up. I think that inexperienced investors have that false belief. But let's think about this. If you had bought Blackstone after they did their IPO, if you had bought Facebook after they did their IPO, they went down. That was a factor of timing and pricing it too high. So let's just start with that. There are reasons that happens, but an IPO does not mean it goes up. Jamaica is the only place in the world where IPO is guaranteed to go up. But if you wait long enough, it could go back down and even drop below the IPO price. And we can name some of those Jamaican companies right now that are trading below their IPO price. We're doing a direct listing, so the price is guaranteed, right? We sell before we list at $10 a share. When we list, it lists at $10. What happens after that, though, in the short term, I don't know. What Warren Buffett says that in the short term, the stock market is a popularity game. In the long term, is a weighing machine. We are focused on investors who are thinking long term because the price of a stock eventually follows the value of the business. So as long as the business is doing good, the stock will eventually follow, right? Warren Buffett stuff here. That is literally who I'm a disciple of, and that's how I need my shareholders to think. We're thinking long term. Will Blue Moho Capital be worth more than $10 per share in 5 years? Yes. It was starting with no debt. I don't see how we don't do that. Will it be worth more than $10 a share in 10 years? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That is how you need to be thinking. Do I believe in this mission, vision, and this team, the values, and what they're doing? If you believe in that, then buy, because right now is ideally it should be the cheapest it will ever be in the next 5 years. So I don't want to make you think, yeah, man, perfect, Trisha, that you're aware of that. You invest for the long term, well, then you're going to be safe. And unlike Berkshire that paid you no dividends while you're waiting for capital appreciation, we will pay dividends. I'm sorry, I love you, Warren, but you should pay dividends. You should pay dividends. This is now our company. Cash is required, right? People can't eat capital appreciation. People cannot use capital appreciation to pay their mortgage. So I don't want them sending the shares to get liquidity, man. Hang on to it. Participate in the gains. The way I think of it is that you have a profit sharing plan with your best people, right? Your team and your long-term investors are your best people. So get paid to wait. You get dividends while waiting on capital appreciation. That's great. And we are going to practice that. We're going to preach that. And every company we invest in, we're going to ask them to do the same thing. So I appreciate that. And I love it. I love it. I love it. So let me see. More questions. You're excited to invest in Jamaica and the Caribbean. I love it. We are excited too. So join it. I love it. I love it. Oh, I'm about to get my phone call. So I'm about to wrap up. Are you going to share this live on your page? I would like to forward the family. Yes, it is. You're not going to try and save it, but I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to try and save it. But we're doing a webinar and we're going to post the ads and you can make the register. This Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, you'll see it posted on here on Instagram so you can share that with people so they can get on here and ask questions. That will be recorded. It is going on my YouTube page, though. So if you find me, David Mullings, on YouTube, this video is there now and you'll be able to share it with your friends and family. So again, www.islandforward. Paid to wait is a great mantra. Yes, David, it is. It is. I love it. All right. I know he's going to call exactly at 1 o'clock. I have 1 minute. The phone is going to ring. He's our lawyer and it's a very important week. So I'm going to join that. Thank you again for the questions and we'll be making ourselves available this Saturday onwards. You can find this video on YouTube. I try and save it on Instagram, but it's not being streamed through Instagram, so I don't know if it's going to save. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. And we are out.